Oh, yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, I think that a lot of it makes fundamental sense, kind of going back to like, the way we used to kind of eat before. I think the last, I don't know, 5 decades, we've gotten out of hand with like synthetics and preservatives, fake fillers, and as we know with nutrition overall, like especially here in this country, if you just compare like 50 years ago, we were eating so much healthier back then than we are now, unfortunately. So if they're gonna, yeah, go back to kind of more fundamental basics and less refined foods, get the white starches, white sugars out, watch the carbs. I think I'm all up for it, definitely. Yeah. So. Yeah, definitely. Those are the healthiest people that I see, are the people that eat that way for sure. And then as far as, I don't have an opinion on like vaccines and medical treatment. I mean, I think really the way my brain thinks is I just process it all. I think there's truths on all ends of the spectrums, and kind of we just have to make our own informed decision on things like that. But yeah, that's a good question. So, but I don't really keep my finger on the pulse of like the latest, like what's going on in terms of, federal agriculture. Uh, right. I just feel like I never have time, to be honest with you. I'm usually either working or just asleep. Not much in between. So, unfortunately. Well, with that said, I guess we've got right on the clock, according to my calculations, we could start. Nice to meet everybody. Just a quick show of hands. I know that I know one of you at least in here from previous presentations. Anybody else has been in the room with me when I've lectured? I recognize a couple of familiar faces, but for the most part, it looks like we've got a new crowd to me, so that's great. So I've been here for, I don't know, the last couple of years off and on. They usually have me every quarter to come out and do a presentation like this. And this one was very interesting. As you can tell, we're here to learn about joint health and mobility. And I'm really excited to talk about that because I'll tell you why here in just a second. But just to give you a formal introduction, if I haven't met you, my name's Taryn, and I live right here in Peachtree City. And I've worked in health and fitness since 1999, and that's when I graduated college. So that gives you an idea of how long I've been doing this for a while now. And I've been in this industry, and it's my favorite. I take it to heart, to passion. So that's why I love being able to meet great people like you and talk about things like current events and how we can apply things like today to our own health and lifestyle. And that's why I wanted to start the presentation before we even jump into the PowerPoint today. Just some housekeeping stuff, a couple of things. On your way out, please feel free. There's material both on your seat, but also additionally to that, I've put some on some red chairs on the way out for you if you want to grab any information that has to do with things outside this lecture, and particularly more with pain management, pain relief. I network with some really great people, and that's why I try to share that information whenever possible. We'll be here off about maybe 45 minutes to an hour, just kind of talking about joint and bone health. And while I'm lecturing, I'm just going to ask that we keep questions at the end. I promise I'll keep about maybe 10, 15 minutes at the end of the presentation. So that way, if there's anything that hasn't been answered or needs to be addressed or any clarification or anything, we can leave time for that. I tend to talk very quickly and fast, so please slow me down with a hand gesture and say, but I try to pack a lot of information in as much as possible. That way we get a bang for a buck and make it more efficient as possible too. So a lot of the information up here will be research, current empirical information, meaning 3 to 5 years in the very recent history. So I try to keep everything as far as statistics and numbers and percentages very relevant and current and up to date as well too. I apologize. I notice it keeps flicking on and off with the black screen. It's not supposed to be doing that. So I've got a feeling it may be doing that in the presentation. It has some type, the HDMI connection's been a little loose and it was a little tricky. So before we were setting up, we were trying to keep that as tight as possible so it didn't do that. So if it does that, please forgive me, but I'll try my best. And it was doing the same thing. Yeah. I had the heads up. Well, if it keeps doing that, I'll try to do some magic or juggling or something crazy. How about that? Just kidding. So why don't we just jump right in and just talk about what does joint health and mobility mean? Well, to give you an illustration, we're talking about bones, ligaments, joints, tendons, everything that's going to go into our aches and pains. By a show of hands, let me ask anybody in here, has anybody in the last, say, 3-6 months had any type of pain, particularly like when you wake up, or like a stiff back, sore knee, anything like that? Most of us, me included. Yeah, right. And so I'll tell you, I'm going to start and tell you a real quick, quick 2-minute story about why this is so ironic and coincidental that I'm here talking about this presentation today. It's the first time I've done this presentation here, but what's interesting is the last time I was here approximately 3.5 months ago, it was right immediately before I injured myself pretty severely. To give you a quick illustration, I was coming from an out-of-town trip in Phoenix, Arizona. I was at the airport running late, and I was carrying really heavy luggage. They wouldn't let me check it. It was too close to boarding time. And I'm running, and all of a sudden my arm pops out of my socket, and it just hear a loud pop, and excruciating pain. It was the third time I've dislocated this shoulder. And luckily for me, it popped right back in. But as you can imagine, it hurt like crazy. I'm not going to curse or swear or anything, but you can imagine what was going through my mind. And I know you've probably been there with a similar story. So that was late April. So fast forward through 3 months of being in a sling, physical rehab, talking to an orthopedic surgeon to ask about surgery. We were discussing surgery consultation during this whole time. Last Thursday, right, the 31st of July, which is exactly 3 months after this happened, I went to my orthopedic surgeon fully expecting to have surgery and talk to him about that. I had another MRI, had an X-ray, compared it, and he gave me the great news and he cleared me. He said, you don't need surgery. And I'm going to tell you why, because I learned something. I love, even though I teach and I train for a living, I love learning new information. I learned a lot from that orthopedic surgeon in that meeting. So I'll finish, when I finish this presentation, I'm going to get to the end and kind of, you'll probably see as we're going through this presentation, you'll already know the answer of why I didn't need surgery in that case. Now, if you do need surgery, or if you had surgery, I'm not saying that's a negative thing. In fact, I endorsed it. I was ready to do it myself because I thought I needed it. But today, let's talk about what can be done either to avoid surgery, to prevent injury, or if we have surgery because of joints and bone health and problems that we might have. What can we do to help either prevent, mitigate, or even if we have to, strengthen our muscles so that we can live pain-free and have the best results possible going forward? That's what we're going to talk about today. That's today's objectives, just in a nutshell and a summary. So why does it matter? Well, we know that in movement, when we are in pain, for example, if we have something like osteoarthritis, which I currently have in my right shoulder, we're going to have some form and level of pain, and that threshold might be minimal, it might be very excruciating. But during life, when I asked that question a few moments ago, the reason why I did that, I knew 100% of everybody in here would have raised their hands, if we're being honest with because there's always been one thing in life that most likely we've had an injury, we've fallen. I talked about balance and prevention of falling last time I was here. And that kind of relates to today's topic as well. Are we getting enough muscular strength training in our routine? Are our muscles balanced? One of the things that was a myth buster from my last presentation about fall prevention was the myth that, well, we're getting older and us older people are supposed to fall. And that's absolutely false. That's not necessarily true. When we fall, it's mostly because of muscular imbalance and muscular deficiency. That is the number one reason why people fall, because we either don't have good posture, we might have an injury that we're rehabbing from, and usually that's caused from some type of problem of a muscular imbalance or not having enough strength in our routine. And so that's what I want to encourage and talk to you about today. Again, as I mentioned, yes, as we get old, we can expect things like this. We can expect to have pain, and things like our orthopedic surgeon told me last week is that there will be cartilage damaged and decreased cartilage. The space in between joints will become less. You'll have less lubricant, and then hence you've heard this, like knees, for example, bone on bone, right? And you might have to, like for my example, in the future, 20, 30 years from now, I may need a total shoulder replacement. Maybe, I don't know. But, there's so many things that go into the comprehensive joints. And when you're talking about things like your shoulders and your hips and your knees, your lower back, those are the primary areas that we're always struggling with. How do we avoid injury? How do we avoid having too much weight and compound weight on those joints and those structures? So That's what we're really going to dive into and talk about that. And that's why it's so important too. So, again, all of us in here, I'm sure at one point or another has had some issues where we might hear something cracking or popping for the first time, being like, that's new, or usually it's in the morning, right when we get out of bed, and then we feel stiff. That's when we're most tightest, all of us, by the way. And again, it's all physiological, reasoning there, is because when you're sleeping, all of your joints and capsules are all tight, and they're been like that for 8-10 hours or what have you. So when you get up, of course, you're going to be moving, and things are going to be cracking and popping and tingling and such. So that's important, because as it ties into, what does it cause from? These areas that I was pointing at. And again, we kind of went over this a little bit, but my goal to anybody whenever I'm either doing personal training or I'm lecturing students or what have you, is I'm always encouraging people as much as possible to put exercise in your daily routine. Make exercise as important as brushing your teeth every day. I always ask people, would you go a day without brushing your teeth? Some people say yes, and I'm like, okay, well, but you know what I mean. Like, treat it as important as that, Give you another example out there. So I just recently got diagnosed with glaucoma earlier this year. This has been a heck of a year for me, by the way. So I went to my ophthalmologist, and she had started me on some eye drops. And if you're familiar with glaucoma, I'm sure some of us in here may know about these eye drops. Are pretty much permanent now the rest of my life. I got it from my father. Thanks, Dad. He gave it to me. It's congenital in my case. And so in that case there, I asked the ophthalmologist, I was like, well, what happens if I skip a day? I mean, is it going to be a big deal? And she had a real stern face. And if you know about glaucoma, she said, don't you dare miss one day. I want you to do this drop every night for the rest of your life. You don't miss one day. So I take it as serious as that. It's, as far as exercise goes, this, you feel so much better. Your blood pressure is reduced, your stress level is maintained, your resting heart rate, your basal metabolism is better, everything's more optimized when you throw exercise into your program. So when you throw physical activity and fitness into your routine, things like everything that we see here, posture, muscle imbalance, and excess weight, should correlate and be able to line up with what we're doing. So, as we go through the presentation, we'll look at that, especially when I'm going to demonstrate some of the exercises up here first as well. And so, again, that's just the benefits. Like we're talking about, what does it matter? Why exercise? We all know this in this room. Of course, we're going to live longer. We're going to live longer pain-free as much as possible, hopefully. Because I've done the illustration before. If you can imagine, we all in life, when I did a presentation called Outlive, and that's living longer pain-free, if our starting point of birth is here on an axis point, like right here at the starting point, and we're a child, and we go through our adolescence into our teen years, college and such, and when we get past our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, what's always happened usually is the general perception is we're supposed to slowly decline to death, right? That's what that line looks like. There's no reason why it has to be that way. And I argued that when I did, again, the Outlive presentation. What we should do is, follow along, be babies, be kids, be older kids, be teens, be college years. But then sometime in our 30s, 40s, or what have you, and by the way, this is never too late to do this, we can stop the linear drop here, or sometimes exponentially drop. We can stop that through all of the things like exercise, eating right, time management, stress reduction, meditation, yoga, you name it. Things like this area has to offer, exercise classes, and incorporating that. And the more we incorporate that in our life by eating better and really treating our body and our mind, importantly, that will mitigate that from not going so much. So much that when we hit 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, it should look like this till death, and then it goes a straight drop right there. Now, nobody wants to think about that last part right there, of course, but that's what we want to do. We want to live, right, all of our life to the fullest, like they say. It's cliche, like live your life to the fullest, meaning that before we die, we want to make sure that we're as healthy as we can be. And in the concept of younger next year, you've heard that presentation, I've done that, or there's a book written on it as well. Really challenging yourself to live truly younger next year. So what age we are today, a year from now, we're going to be even healthier. And whether that's by cutting our caffeine down, reducing our alcohol consumption, if we're taking some type of bad things like tobacco or things like that, maybe eliminating that, reducing our sugar will go really, really huge. And anything we could think of, like what's one thing we can work on so that next year I'm going to be a little better in health. And then the year after that, I'm going to challenge myself and even just really improve that. That's why I always tell people it's never too late to start. The best day, if you are not starting an exercise program, is to do it right now and jump into it. So that's why it's so great to, again, I'm too old to exercise. That is incorrect. The correct version, I am not too old to exercise, is true. Fear of joint pain limitations and movement. So some of the things, and you've heard these examples that, why some people might not want to exercise. And again, in addition to the list on the presentation that we talk about, people don't want to exercise for many, many reasons. I mean, there's too many reasons that we could throw in there of why people wouldn't want to. But as it pertains to today, let's talk about that second line item, that joint pain limit movement. And I'll use myself for an illustration, for example, again, because there is a correct and an incorrect way to treat your body when you're working out. You wouldn't just, let's just say for me, if I'm a novice and I've never exercised, it would be really bad that I didn't know anything about exercising and I had somebody tell me to grab the heaviest weights and start doing as much as I can with, it doesn't matter about form, don't worry about that, just do as many as I can and get on the floor and do 100 push-ups. Try it, even if I've never done one push-up in my life. That'd be horrible. That's not correct training as far as how we want to train our body. We want to do it in baby steps, little progressions. And it's just like anything else. You don't want to just jump right into it. And some people might be fearful of getting injured. I mean, I know I am. Again, using myself as an example, after this most recent injury, which was April 30th of this year, right after that, I started getting in the gym and I started grabbing very, very light weights and bands. And I was starting to do some rotator cuff exercises. And, you've seen some of these, and walking the hand up the wall, taking a ball. And I tried all of that, and then I started hurting again, and then it got worse. And then I thought, oh, shoot, I must have really hurt myself really bad this time. And then again, I'll talk a little bit more about this, but it made sense because what was going on was, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's kind of weird. When you are injured or when you're recovering from surgery or something major, you're supposed to exercise. Here's an example, right? Somebody who gets a total knee replacement. Anybody in here has done that or has known anybody that's done that? And what they do now is when you have a total knee replacement, what do they do that day? They have you standing up where they wouldn't have done that before, right? And what do they have you doing the next day? Go to PT, start doing some leg, right? There's a reason why they do that. And they're not telling you to do deep squats or 300-pound deadlifts and things like that. They're telling you to smartly see your physical therapist and baby step incrementally back into rehabbing, in that case, the knee, if that makes sense. So my hope is that everybody would get over that fear and jump into an exercise program. I talk about some of these exercises that are low impact and warming up, cooling down, controlling your range of motion. That's so key and vital. And, if we just jump right into it, like I said in that example, that is not the smartest way to do it. You see a lot of real serious, hardcore type A people that'll do that, and they'll think, well, if I really do a lot right now today, obviously it should be a lot better. And that's just not the way this works. And just in life, that's not the way it works, right? You have to be smart about it. People say, work smart, don't work hard. It's the same thing. Work out smart, don't work out hard. And again, there is a right way to do it. But once you get doing the exercising, your joints will love you for it, because the more, and again, the shoulder example, I did a lot of these. I mean, these were so painful before. I couldn't even do this last year because I forgot the other part of the story. I mentioned that was the third time I had dislocated that shoulder. Well, the second time was only a year prior from falling down my stairs. I may have told that. Some of you may have told you that. And that was horrible. That was 2024, January 1st, how I started the year off. And that was really, really bad. So again, going back into it, if you're someone like me who's been through this 3 times, all the exercises to do for rehabbing the shoulders. I'm really excited, to be able to do all that, where I couldn't do that with especially pain too, much less being able to do it at all. And so, well, what are the most important muscle group areas to strengthen? That's a question that's thrown around all the time. Like, okay, tell me the best exercises to do. And there are some really good, strong primary ones. Like, for example, and some of these will hit here in a little bit, but everybody knows what a plank is in here, I assume. When I did my practical exercise, and I know some of you in here, I remember you were in here, we worked out together when I was here. I think that was sometime last year, I believe. But to give you an idea, like a good core exercise, if I put a mat down on the floor and I get down here, I can do a plank, and I can hold it. In my case, I could probably only hold it for 10 seconds or so. I'm not that strong, but Some people can do 30 seconds, some people can do a minute. If you remember that artist, her name is Cher. I think she turned 75 years old and she did a 5-minute plank on television that time. I think that's about what she did roughly. But then there's a world record that's like I don't know, 3-hour plank. It's just ridiculous. But we can mentally sharpen ourselves so that we could do some of those incredible feats like working out, again, core, meaning like, this does include things like the hips, the abductors, everything around here is so important and crucial because really if you take a look at the abdominals and the legs, most of our life we're going to be reliant on that in our functional daily activity, walking, hiking, playing with kids or even grandkids and getting the groceries out of the car, walking and moving. So it's really, really important to hit your basic primary muscle group areas and keep those strong as much as possible. And we'll take a look at some of those examples, as I mentioned. So we talk about some of the different things that will help joint mobility. Stretching is so crucial and key. Stretching helps with flexibility. That's one major component of physical activity. As we get older, we do get a little bit stiffer and tighter. That's just what happens. If you think about with flexibility, what's going on with our muscles is that it's like a rubber band, and it really does get constricted as we age. The way to prevent that is take that rubber band or that muscle in that case, and again, think of it like an elastic band, and if you're stretching it, like for example, if I got really tight hamstrings on the back of your legs, one of the best things to do is just reach down to the floor and then try to really get those hamstrings stretched. Again, it's going to give it some more flexibility. So that way it'll help with things like range of motion so that you can do that a little bit better and less effort, with less effort. And that way it'll really help in life too. And a lot of, even this picture illustration, there's classes like yoga, as I mentioned earlier, stretching classes, or even just taking 5 minutes out of the day and just doing any of these basic stretches, which again, we'll take a look and try some here in a second. So, and when you're stretching, some key basics, you don't need to hold a stretch for more than 20, 30 seconds. Doesn't need to be any longer than that. Most of your benefit, the majority of it is in that 20, 30 second range. That's all you need when you're doing a stretch. So one stretch that we could do right now, one of you is demonstrating it for me, so I'm going to ask you to copy her. This is good for your hip stretch. Everybody take your left leg, like this lady up here, and cross it over like this, if we can, and then reach and pull your upper body into that left knee. And right away, as long as you're trying to do that, you'll feel immediately, everybody feel that on your left side, on the left hip. That's a great hip stretch right there. I like that. And then let's pretend we've done that for about 20, 30 seconds, and then we're going to switch. So you always want symmetry. You always want equal stretching on both sides. So that right foot is going to go over to the left knee like that. When you're pulling it in, you're trying to hold it, and you really feel that stretch right on the right side of the hip, right? We can really feel that there. That's good. And then another one for the shoulders, what we could do is we could take our fingers and interlace them like this, and then try to touch the ceiling with your palms by pushing up like this, and you really feel those shoulders getting nice and loosened up. And the great thing about doing these stretches is this really wakes us up. This really gets all of those muscles just woken, especially since we're sitting here. We always want movement. You can turn this into a back stretch by just kind of tilting to your right like this, mirroring me, and you'll feel that on your left upper back there, right? And then if we go this way, same thing. The opposite, you'll feel now on your upper right side of your back, and that's really, really feeling good. And so any of those stretches, there's many of them that we could do, but just gives you an idea. What we're trying to do is increase flexibility, and again, that's just so important. Some of the healthiest and fittest people I know are people that do yoga religiously, because when they do it, they just realize how their whole body just feels so much better once everything is just kind of looser and not as tight. And again, that's really, really important and vital with your exercise routine. And just as important as well, another component of that fitness model is strength training. We all want to look like her, right? When we're her age, we want to be as buff as her with her biceps. And so, strength training is very, very important. And, it says to prevent injury. Well, if you think about it, on any of our joints we've been talking about, the stronger the muscles that are surrounding that joint, will help compensate so that it will give really good protection and prevention of any type of pain or any type of injuries that are going to happen to that joint. And that's why, for example, if you know people who have gone in before a total knee replacement, I'll bet that the physicians probably told you to strengthen up as much as possible before surgery. Yeah. And they probably told you, get down and do some of those leg extensions with the machine, or, sit on the machine and do those leg curls and do those calf raises, do those hip abductors, strengthen up those sides of the glutes. The reason why they're doing that is because you're going in for major surgery and you want those other muscles surrounding it that are really going to help. I'll give you another example. I had another injury, minor compared to my shoulder. I had something called golfer's elbow that I've been dealing with for a while. It seems to have gone away, but it's inflammation of your medial epicondylitis in my case. So meaning the inside of my elbow was really painful and hurting. And so when I went to I think this was an orthopedic surgeon. No, I'm sorry, this is an orthopedist I saw. We were just looking at an x-ray. And I just asked her, I was like, gosh, I can't get rid of this. I'm trying my best. And she had shown me some of the exercises that I wasn't familiar with that were able to kind of get that stronger. So in that case, I was able to do some of these forearm flexion exercises, reverse extensions, even putting this on a table or a bench and doing what's called pronation and supination with the wrist, and some of the other exercises as well. Because what happens is, once she was telling me, the orthopedist said, we need to bulk, that's the word she used, bulk the muscles up around, in that case, the forearm, so that gets rid of that pain. That same thing goes for lateral epicondylitis with the tennis elbow. That's the opposite. It's on the outside. You hear a lot of people have that. So one of the best things to do when I have people that are suffering for that is just doing a whole bunch of these and a bunch of these. And then, of course, stretching. We talked about stretching just a few seconds ago. So if you know anybody that has that, or if you're dealing with that, you want to do some of these stretches. This probably looks familiar to some people. This one, all of those are really good, because what's happening is it's also not only strengthening here, but it's also stretching some of these compromised muscles and tendons that are surrounding, in that case, that injury. And so that just kind of gives you a little example of, why that would be necessary and important. And then, resistance bands are really great too. So, for example, let's see, anybody in here use these resistance bands? Good, yeah. So some of the things that we can do with these bands, and I'll just grab this green one here. If you're familiar, just like the dumbbells, as you know, they go from lighter weight to heavier weight. Well, these bands, depending on the color and the size of them, will go from easier to medium to harder. So like this thin green band is pretty nice. This yellow band's a little thicker and there's a little bit more resistance. Now this red band, you'll never see me using this. I'm a wimp. This is too hard for me. It's very, very thick and it's hard. So let's just take in this example. Why don't I just switch this out and use the yellow one. So this is, in addition to, like, say, in your home, I always encourage people, have some dumbbells and bands around. I keep them in my car. If you've seen my car before, I've told some of the people out there before, my whole trunk is a mobile gym, and I keep these because I like it, because it doesn't take up a lot of space. But literally, you can just grab your band, and you could do these at home. You can do some of these bicep curl exercises. You can do a shoulder press, with the shoulders. You can turn that into a lateral raise. There's so many things you could do that. You can work out your legs in this case. Let's say that I just hold my hands here. I'll show you from the side. You could do some squats with them too. So you can go squat with your band. That puts a little bit more tension on it. So there's so many great things about these bands too. I highly recommend, if you get an opportunity. I have literally 3 or 4 of these bands in my car, and they're perfect because they serve the purpose with strength training. So again, it goes back to what we're talking about again with strength training. That's so important and crucial. I used a lot of that when I was rehabbing, and I'm still doing it. This is another thing, by the way, too. You see a lot of physical therapists use these bands. And I mentioned to you, I've hurt this several times. I hurt this one. I hurt my elbow. I've hurt my lower back. I've been in physical therapy a lot. Most of it stemmed from being a wrestler long ago. Like about, I've wrestled for about 15 years, from about 1998 to about 2013, give or take. And so in between that time, I took a lot of punishment, and I went to the physical therapist a lot. And the bands were something that became very familiar with myself, with my exercise routines. And so they're really great for physical therapy, but also just for strength training in general. And what the physical therapist told me was something very enlightening. Every time I went to go see him, I got hurt. Like, welcome back. Okay, let's get to it. I'm doing the bands. Okay, yeah, I promise I'll do it. Well, one of the things that they had told me to do that I wasn't doing was to do it while I'm not injured, while I'm not hurting. And that's when I really should be doing it. And I can't preach enough on that as well. Some of the things that with exercise, as long as we're feeling good and we're going through the day, well, I don't need to do that. I feel good today. And then when we get hurt, well, oh gosh, I got to go back and I got to do my physical therapy and my PT. Well, that all the more reason emphasizes why it's so important to continue strength training, because once you stop doing it, and you know this, not only will those muscles atrophy, you might have weaker muscular imbalance, but also on top of that, you just get out of a rhythm. I mean, and once you keep that rhythm going, you want to just stay consistent. That's just so basic and fundamental with what you're doing with your exercises. And so, again, we talked a little bit about dumbbells. So I showed you the bands. Well, anything, in my opinion, you could do with a band, you can do with a dumbbell as well, too. So I'll show you what these aren't too heavy for me. So 5 pounds, I think I can do these. You can do some bicep curls. I showed you this with the band. What else did I show us with the band? I think I showed some shoulder presses, right, with the bands as well. And I think you can do some of these lateral flies as well. And then also, can you work your legs with dumbbells? Sure, why not? So again, you can go squats. You can even do lunges. I know those are some of the favorites for some people, not me. But again, exercise is so crucial, and it just really, really helps and goes a long way. And, so you could do what's called isometric holds or static. I showed that a few minutes ago when I got on the floor and I did a plank. Isometric means you're not moving. It's just in one static motion. You can even, you've probably seen this before as well, too. You can take a ball and I show you on the wall here. Everybody knows probably this one here that's in here. You could do ball squats, right? Well, you can also do a ball hold. Like this is called the iron chair, and it sounds torturous, but you're sitting there literally. You try to do this for a minute, and the legs will be fried. Even 10 seconds got me on that one as well, too. And, but anyway, that's an isometric exercise where you're not moving, and you're just trying to hold it. Those planks that I showed you earlier, I guess I'll throw the mat back up here. We showed you a basic plank on the forearms. You could turn that into a side plank. You can do that onto a side arm plank. You can do that into a high plank. Different variations. And so challenge yourself, look those planks up and try, and you'll get better and better. 10 seconds today, 15 seconds tomorrow, 30 seconds next week. And you try to incrementally, again, like I said, progression, baby steps, try to get the exercises a little harder. Balance is so important. I did a whole hour on balance one time, and again, a lot of that had to do with prevention of falling as well. The way that we sharpen our balance is to do imbalanced exercises. I know that sounds kind of weird, like to sharpen and be better at balance, you have to throw yourself off. So for example, we've all seen, I think I've done this one before in this class too. This is not the sobriety test, but rather the heel to toe walk, right? We've seen this before. Hard exercise, because you're trying to do that while you're walking, or if you try to stand on one foot and then close your eyes, and that really throws things off a lot. And you can literally challenge yourself, close your eyes, or do it with even eyes open. Some of these are very, very hard as well too. So you're trying to just throw yourself off so that way you're trying to really challenge yourself. Go on a ball, do the same thing. I'm on a ball, and just even sitting here is hard, right? Or even like a foot up like this, the other foot, things like that. So a lot of those can be very, very tricky, but really challenge yourself. If that heel to toe walk is too hard, just do it on the wall or a kitchen counter or a chair, and just try that at home on your own. Always safety first, making sure that you do it and you feel comfortable while you're doing it. And so that'll really, really help out a lot. The step risers are great too. So that's these things right here. So I'm sure people in here use the step risers. So you've got one, you can take these and challenge yourself and stack them. And in this illustration, it looks like she's working on some balance and probably strengthening as well too. So you're trying to go up, and you can really turn this into challenges as well. Step over it and then step backwards onto it too. And again, be careful when you're doing it. Go sideways, just whatever you're doing, obviously, you want to make sure that safety first. So don't try anything if you don't feel comfortable with it, but challenge yourself. Like if you go to a really high step up like this, do it again and again, and that is a really great way to strengthen the legs. And you want to balance it. If I did, let's say, 15 of those on my left leg, I should do 15 on my right leg as well, so that it's balanced out. So that is another great exercise. The cardio is very important as well. So, okay, in this presentation so far, we've kind of gone through and talked about flexibility for a little bit. We talked a lot about strength training just now. And now it leads to cardio health as well, and how that relates to our joints and our bones. One of the things that people will tell you is, as far as swimming goes, swimming is one of the best exercises, if you have access to it, that is low impact on the joints and the shoulders. And because of the water buoyancy when you're in there, if you have that option, I encourage you to go for it, do it. But in my opinion, I'm a huge fan of walking. Walking, in my opinion, is the best exercise there is. I can't say enough of the benefits of walking, power walking, meaning at a really good speed, walking up hills when possible, and doing it for a long time. So if you can get walking in your regimen, then I really am a fan of that. Same thing with cycling. Nothing to take away from biking, just it's not my preference, but I think it's wonderful as well. You hear as far as like for bones and joints, bicycling would be less impactful because at that motion, if you think about the legs moving, it's not getting all that compressed shock on the joints as, say, walking would. But again, if you're strengthening your body and you're routinely doing it, your body will get used to it, and your muscles will be stronger, and they'll be able to carry the load, so to speak. You really want to challenge yourself when you're doing it. So really, that's another question that people always ask, like, well, which one's the best? What do you recommend? And I always tell people the best exercise that there is the one that you're going to do. So if you're a fan of like, well, I hate, like in my case, I don't hate biking, but it's not my favorite. So for me, probably walking would be the best. That's what I choose to do. Or sometimes swimming if you have access to a pool. And then we take a look at another component of how flexibility differs from mobility. We just talked about that a little second ago when we talked about that rubber band, that elastic band. That's flexibility. If you think of it that way, that is what helps our full range of motion. Well, then what does mobility mean? Mobility is the next step up. Those are your hinges. Those are how well oiled your hinges are, because that's really where our body parts are. They're just cables and pulleys when you think of it. So my shoulder, my elbow, my hip, my knee, how lubricated and how well oiled are those to help me through functional daily activities? So for example, if I'm trying to reach down, I'm going to grab my groceries, how mobile am I to do that? If I'm immobile, if you think of it like, take the picture of somebody who just never exercises, is very physically unhealthy, they don't want to move, they might be immobile. Something as simple as taking groceries might be really, really hard and challenging for them because it's not something that they're used to. So again, it's just in functional everyday life, that's why mobility is going to be really helpful. Well, which is better, flexibility or mobility? There's no right answer to that one. They're just as important and crucial to each other. They work hand in hand. So you want to have optimal flexibility, but also optimal mobility as well. So that goes to being, again, with flexibility, you want to be as loose and stretched out as possible. With mobility, it's kind of like that next step level up. You want to be agile and athletic when possible, so that way you can move and be in just better shape, just overall, when you're doing any type of activities. And then we talk about different types of movements that will be really good as examples for just helping with functional fitness. So for example, I mentioned the squatting before. Getting up and off a chair is just as crucial as well too. That's one of the exercises. You don't have to do it, but that's one of the things that you can do is just what's called a sit to stand exercise. You can have people, I have clients that I have them do that 15, 20 times every day. And that way, when they do it, it'll be easier and easier and easier every single day. Reaching, that's really important. You've probably heard grip strength's really important as well too. There's different types of grip strength activities. I highly recommend, there's these, you can get them online, but the grip strengthening exercise bands, you've probably seen those. They have like the little circle rubber ones. They have the hand grip exercises you could do. Grip strength is so important. And again, it goes with just different activities that you're doing. Standing and walking is so important as well too. So what you're getting at with the general consensus of all of these slides is it's always something to do with moving, with challenging ourselves. You don't see a slide on here that says, lay down and rest. Although, in fairness, just not to pick on that, sleep is important. I've done a sleep presentation as well. You do want to make sure, I'm not trying to beat up on sleep. You do need rest and sleep as much as we can as well too. So not to take away from that. But the point of it is that to burn calories and to increase our metabolism during the day, to regulate our body so that we're in control of where we want to be physically fit, and also mindfully fit as well, because the more physical fit you feel, the more mindful health that it just correlates. It really does. It's amazing how hand in hand it goes with how they're interconnected with each other. Do we get enough water every day? I hope so. That's important. I try my best, but I challenge everyone in here. The old adage of 8-ounce glasses a day, that's a pretty good rule of thumb, 64 ounces a day. That's a lot of water if you can. General rule of thumb, that'd probably be better for women. Us guys who are a little bigger, we probably need to aim for about 100 ounces a day because we're a little bigger. Your body's made about 60-70% of water, and so it just makes sense that you would rehydrate and refuel your body with what you're mostly made up of. The water's in your brain, all of your soft tissues, your organs, your vital organs like your heart. So if we have more water in our body, it just makes sense that we're going to have more optimal health and fitness there as well. And so a good rule of thumb that I always tell people is that if you take your body weight and you cut the number in half of pounds that you are, so whatever weight, a number that is, try to aim for that number in ounces. So give you an illustration, like if I was about 200 pounds, I should take my body weight and cut it in half, and I should challenge myself to have 100 ounces of water a day to maintain just health and just overall fitness level. If I'm not getting close to that, then I'm dehydrated. You're not getting enough water. If at the end of the day, sorry to be a little graphic or visual, but if you're going urinating and if the urine is not clear and it's real dark and yellow, that means you're dehydrated. You want to make sure your urine is as clear as possible at the end of the day. Again, I think that's so important and crucial, especially in Georgia summer heat when we tend to be very dehydrated. Plus, this also is important. A lot of men will ask me, well, I drank 3 or 4 cups of coffee this morning. Does that count? And I tell them, not only does that not count, that counts against you. If you drink 3 cups of coffee, that's a -3 of +3 waters you need to make up just to get back to 0 because it's a diuretic. As we know, it dehydrates you. Things like alcohol. Oh, I drink a margarita. I'm like, well, that's terrible. I mean, not only all the sugar and the alcohol, but you've just dehydrated. Now you have to make up for it and drink like a whole bunch, a liter of water to make up for that, just to bring yourself back to neutral. I'm not saying to be boring and, not have fun and such. It's okay, moderation, everything in moderation. And that includes food as well, too. So, we know if you just take a big picture look at your macronutrients, which are your fats and your carbohydrates and your proteins. And earlier, before we started the discussion, somebody, mentioned about RFK and some of the initiatives of, what are we looking at with our food and our nutrition? Over the years, especially recently now, I think that we're finally getting there, where we're now, before we took a look at some of these fad diets of like, not to pick on Atkins, but say you should have fat and you should just get rid of the carbs. And then you had different diets, like the keto diet, and saying, well, you should do this one and just do protein and do, no carbs or what have you. Really, I think it's just a sensible amount of just portion control, but also not only that, but good carbs, good fats, and good proteins that we need. Because there are, as you know, there's essential fatty acids. There are good carbohydrates, which are more of the complex starches versus the simple carbs. And then, as far as protein goes, protein's very important for muscular health and bone density and everything else. So it's really important to take those macronutrients, but also, is it important as far as things like watching out for dairy, for example, right? Dairy's got a bad reputation of being connected to things like inflammation. And, but you have alternatives, though. You can also go to things like almond milk versus cow milk. You can do supplements if you need to. I do recommend everybody like a strong multivitamin because just in general, that'll really be very beneficial to just covering those gaps in nutritional deficiencies if we have any. Then posture is very important too as well. I mentioned earlier in the presentation about my lower back problems. I've had that since wrestling because, again, from all the years of abuse that I took my wrestling and falls and such. And over the years, my posture had really been compromised. What I learned when I went to physical therapy to rehab my lower back was about sitting properly. And everybody in here looks like you all have really good posture. I like that. I can't pick on anybody because you all have that perfect S curve. That's what you want. If you look at your spine, it should look like an S, where it goes like this guy right here is a good example. S right here. Versus, we don't want the letter C, a big fat C. And that's what a lot of us look like. Unfortunately, I'm saying us, I mean me and people that I work with. If I'm sitting in my car in Atlanta traffic, I don't want to look like this all miserable and grumpy. Or if I'm sitting there watching Netflix or binge watching and just I'm looking like the letter C. That's wrong. If I'm sitting, driving, anytime at the dinner table, what have you, like you're doing, you want to have good posture like the gentleman on the right, because you notice your head is up, it's not curved down, your shoulders are back, they're not hunched forwards, and your spine, which is really important, is nice and intact. It's not loose and compromised because, again, it looks like the same person here, and you could tell it is. And just by looking at the picture side by side, the guy on the right looks so much healthier, taller, and in better shape, right? I mean, it's amazing what that can do, like when you just have really good posture. And many times I have to tell myself, and look at myself and say, it's like the whole thing of the ballerina. Pull the pin up, and then that way you're literally like a foot taller, you feel like. You're so much higher up and elevated. And, this is so important. This is what I loved about what the orthopedic surgeon, I promised you we were going to get to the end when we were telling that story together. I had asked that orthopedic surgeon, I'll use my example again, about, well, how much can I work out? How much can I lift? When can I get back to what I was doing before injury? And he told me, he said, use common sense. He said, treat yourself as you would treat your clients. He said, would you have your clients after they injured themselves go in and start working out like Charles Atlas or Arnold Schwarzenegger? Like, no. Well, then do that. Work out up to pain. If you have pain, you're doing too much, and cut back. You should work out up to what feels challenging, but not sharp, not a dull pain. It should be to where I feel the muscles being burned. That's where I know I'm working out smarter, not working out harder. And so again, that's what I really like about what that orthopedic surgeon gave me just as a tool. I mentioned this already. You can go over all the different exercises in your home where you're living, and literally you can really do an exercise routine at your house. If you got a chair, you can do some dips on them. You can turn around and you can do some push-ups too. You can invert that. There's just different wall push-ups you could do. I mean, all day long, you can just go with anything that you can do in your own home. You can do some lateral squat walks, right? You can do some of these. You can do some walking on your tippy toes. That's a great way to work the calves. If you want to work your calf muscles, walk on your tippy toes at home. And there's so many things that you can do in the home, to exercise that won't stop you. You can do a workout plan like this, just as an example. Just shows you, during the week, what that could look like. But people always ask me, like, well, what's the right amount? And really, what I tell them is, again, what you can get in. You should be moving every day. Do some type of aerobic or cardio as many days as possible during the week. Strength training, the stuff like the bands and the weights and everything, maybe 2 to 3 days a week, if we can. Anything's going to be better that we're doing right now. If you're just adding one more day in and stretching, that should be every day as much as possible. First thing in the morning, get up out of the bed and do some stretches as well. That helps too. So this just gives you an example, like, well, what can I do? I try to walk every day. That's my go-to for my exercise. Weightlifting, I try about 2 to 3 days a week if I can. And again, it just depends. It's just whatever you feel comfortable with, that's what you can challenge yourself to do. But be careful. Like I mentioned, don't do anything crazy like working out with too much weights or going beyond your limits, or especially things like this, the high impact moves, proper footwear. You want to make sure that you've got the right athletics sneakers on, whatever you're doing with your workouts. And then prolonged sitting. One of the things that I hate about these presentations is that, unfortunately, it is a monologue. It really has to be that way to where you're sitting. And again, that's why I try to shorten it up so that way, we're not sitting for the whole hour so that we can move. And that's so vital and crucial. It's my last slide. This would be a great one as well to take a picture of with the phone if you want, because this one really summarizes everything we just talked about from the beginning. And I promised we were going to leave about 10, 15 minutes, which we have now, to discuss a little Q&A so we could think about if we have any questions. But let me tell you this real quick on this summary slide. To wrap up that why I didn't get surgery, that puzzle piece. And it kind of, we went over it a little bit, but to reiterate, in my case, yes, I did a lot of damage to my cartilage. Yes, I have a lot more osteoarthritis in my shoulder because it was my third time. And yes, I'm older, so that's why also it's a little bit worn down. But the great thing, the good news that I got was the surgeon told me the only reason why they would have done shoulder surgery is to correct stability. And the reason why my shoulder kept popping out was because I had instability. Well, now it's kind of weird. Not only with age, but also the arthritis has kind of tightened that capsule up. The chance, he did some tests on me. He had me do this, then he came over and he pushed on my arm, and then he came over and did this. And he asked me, did it feel like your arm's going to pop out at all? I said, not at all. He said, you don't need surgery. He said, you're older, you've got more tightness there, and actually, it sounds weird, more arthritis actually helps to keep it a little bit more intact. So that's one of the crazy things about how it kind of helps sometimes to be a little stiff in this case. But, again, that's great in terms of exercising. Everyone's different. If I was in my 20s, he told me, yes, I would tell you to do surgery. I would tell you to do joint stability surgery because most likely I would be more hypermobile in that case where the shoulder's too flexible and pops out. But not at my age now, not in the condition I'm at, so that's why I don't have to worry about it. But, again, what is one thing we can walk away with today that we learned that kind of kickstarts our own program? And that's basically the end of my presentation. And if there are any questions, I'll leave it to the room now for anything. Anybody have any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Karen, I wobble when I walk. I thought my balance was affected by my brain. What's going on?
Yeah, you're right. Balance is affected by brain, and sometimes the body, it does things uncontrollably, in that case, when we're walking. Why would that happen? I have somebody that I work with, she's in her late 80s, and she asked the same thing. So you're, okay, good, this is perfect. You don't look it, I wouldn't have guessed that. But so like when you're moving, it's like anything. It's so funny because like, I'll give you an example. Like when I was wrestling, I'm not going to show you here, but there were moves that I used to be able to do that I would be able to demonstrate, and I can't do them anymore. I tried it, and when I tried doing it, my body just wouldn't do it. And I was laughing because I was like, I can't do this anymore. What's going on? My brain knows what to do. It's telling it. And I just, and I did it a million times. I've done it all my life. And for some reason, there's something, not mentally in that case, but something physically that was not allowing me to do that wrestling role that I was trying to mimic and show other people to demonstrate. I just couldn't do it. So that's the only thing I could think of is that over time, I think that our bodies get to a point where we have our best intentions. We can just do the best that we can. But yes, there are going to be limitations sometimes. But I wouldn't let that stop you. I would just tell you that's more incentive and more drive to just keep going and overcome that. So don't let that get you down. I mean, really, it's just exercise is just practice. The orthopedic surgeon told me the best treatment and medicine is exercise. So it can't hurt, and just keep trying. But yeah, and if you feel wobbly, of course, like I said a few minutes ago, just please be careful. I tell clients they tell me I don't want a cane or a walker. I tell them it'd be better to do that than not have it and then fall. Like there's some people that I work with that I will not work with them if they're not having their cane or their walker. And, but people will look at me and I'm like, would you rather have them look at you while you're upright with your cane or walker? Or would you rather have them look at you when you don't have it but you're on the floor? So don't let that beat you up. Don't let that get to you. That's just a mind thing. So, yeah. That's.
Mm-hmm. And everything you mentioned, One Life Fitness, I have to throw it in it because that's I'm a member, and so is she down there.
Perfect. Good.
It's a wonderful class. Everything you mentioned is in that class.
Oh, that's great. Nice.
What class is that at
One Life Fitness.
What's the name of the class?
Silver Sneakers.
Oh, Silver Sneakers. Oh, that's great. Nice. Good.
Where is it?
Location.
They have several One Lives.
Lexington. Off of 54 to Lexington.
That's the one near the Sprouts. And then they have one. There's another one at the main 5474 intersection that I know of. Commerce Drive. Yep. Used to be World Gym. I thought there was another one. Oh, I'm thinking of Noonan. There's a couple in there too. There's plenty of options, yeah. But you mentioned silver sneakers. Anybody else has not heard of silver sneakers in here? Is that new or foreign? Or is everybody pretty much good? Okay, then I don't need to explain. If for any reason you didn't raise your hand, you haven't, Google search silver sneakers because everybody should be eligible for that. That's usually free. I assumed you get a free or a subsidized membership to One Life. I'm assuming, so you can do that. You could be eligible for it. So please check that out if you don't. If you're not getting that, check that out. Your health insurance. It's part of your the Plan B, I believe, like whichever one that you're using for health insurance. Perfect. Curves. Okay, great. Good. It's only for women. Okay, I didn't know. Okay, well, all right. They need to bring in a men curves then to supplement the other half of the population. No, that's great. But yeah, good pieces of advice. Anything else? Oh, yes, ma'am. And then
I always have trouble when I stand up, take those first couple steps. After I'm walking, I'm fine. But that up and movement is so hard.
Sure, yeah.
What is that all about?
Just from the tightness, like right now, after an hour sitting in here, I bet it's going to be a lot harder to get up and going versus if you had just sat down and got back up. It's just the muscles just sitting there at rest. And again, they said that sitting is the new smoking. You may have heard this, that leads to shorter lifespan and earlier problems with morbidity. And that's why I try my best to not sit as much as possible. And people I work with, just whatever you can do is just not sit at long periods of time. Sometimes it's unfortunate. We have to. If you're taking a flight or a car ride or a meeting, then you just have to do it. But that's normal. What you're explaining is totally normal. I mean, it gets me, like, in the mornings when I'm getting up first thing, it takes me a while to just get moving. It's like a car engine just revving up, And then once you get going, I'm the same as you. You could just get going and then you're fine because everything's lubricated by then. Your joints feel better and everything's just kind of in, movement. It really is. Motion is the lotion when it comes to mobility and joint health. So, yes, ma'am. Like hot teas and herbal teas. Yeah, I think that's great because a lot of those have those natural herbal supplements. You could have turmeric. You could have things like echinacea. You can have green tea. A lot of those are researched and go to show with studies that they're very beneficial. I think teas are wonderful. You even have other teas that they're saying that are really good for bone and joint health, especially the women in here, to prevent things like osteoporosis and other things like that. It's important to, we brushed on it a little bit with the supplements when I talked about vitamin D and calcium and such, but with tea, I think that's a great idea. As far as, I've never heard anything negative with different types of teas that they have, so I think it can only help, really. Yeah.
What about the flavored waters that are so popular now, like LaCroix and Waterloo?
I'm a fan of them. I don't have a problem with those. I think those are great because if that helps people drink water, to be honest, I like to drink a seltzer or a club soda at night versus just regular water. That's just how I am. So I think that's wonderful as long as it's not getting out of hand with added sugars and natural flavoring and all that. But if it has just like carbonation and it's just like a LaCroix or something like that, I think those are great. Personally, I like them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This standing up that she was asking about, you have to be mindful if you're on blood pressure medication too.
Oh, good point. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you have to count to 3 before you start walking.
I like that. That's really good. That's very, very good. Yeah, you're right. Good point. Because there are times where that even affects me too, like whenever, and you're right, your blood might rush to the head. So that is a very good point on that. I like that advice. Can you repeat that, please, louder? They were asking to repeat it.
I said, if you're on blood pressure medication, you're changing your position when you stand up. And I said, I taught my husband to count to 3 before you take a step, before you start walking.
That's really good. Thank you. I like that. 1, 2, 3. That's perfect. Very, very good. Well, on that note, as I mentioned, it's been a pleasure seeing some of you again and meeting some new people for the first time. You have your evaluation form. Please feel free to take whatever material you want. Anything you don't want, you can leave on your chair. And also, as I mentioned on the way out, on the red chairs going out, there's some promotional brochures and stuff. But Again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope have a great weekend. Thank you. Appreciate it.